I'm living currently in Cheshunt near the canoe course in Lee Valley, but I'm originally born in Manchester. I've lived in Bedford and I've lived in Nottingham.
Yeah, I'd say my hometown is Aberdeen, but I'd say my home's Nottingham now as well. I've lived there for 13 years, so.
I started off canoeing in the Scouts when I joined from the Cubs, and the leaders in my scout group were really into climbing, canoeing, all sorts of outdoor activities, and eventually I just started paddling with them and I really enjoyed it. I did my BC 1-star test and things like that, and then eventually I joined my local kayak club, Viking Kayak Club in Bedford, and that's when I sort of started to get into the competitive side of things more.
Well, I started canoeing almost before I can remember. My parents were both slalom paddlers, just at a sort of local level, and so I was around riverbanks since I was a baby, and as soon as I could swim I was let out in kayaks on a string and stuff, and yeah, so earliest memories are really canoeing pretty much.
The reason I really got into paddling and canoeing and eventually into competition was just seeing the people who were doing it already. So my scout leaders were very charismatic. They were all action guys, getting out there doing things every weekend and enjoying that sort of a lifestyle. And then once I'd started paddling generally, I joined my Viking Kayak Club in Bedford, and the people there were again really charismatic. Some of them guys were in the top flights of the national competitions, and they looked amazing on the water, and I said, I want to be like them. I want to do what they do, and that's how I really kind of got myself hooked into it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I started so early I can't really remember why I started. I think continuing with it was pretty easy. It sort of dragged you on because there was just always so many different things to do, so many different rivers, little adventures to go on, and I was really lucky. There was quite a healthy slalom scene in Scotland at the time. There was a lot of different races to go to. There was we'd go surfing on the sea, and I think because I always had opportunities in front of me because it's what my parents were going to do, and then what the squads I got involved in were doing, and the clubs and stuff. So yeah, one thing led to another, and then you're sort of doing it all the time. I spoke to Tim, and he wasn't keen originally, and then he sort of thought about it a bit more, and we'd actually tried it out as a bit of a laugh at a Tarsen World Cup that summer. We'd done a 4-cat relay team race in C2, having never paddled together before, and that was pretty exciting, but sort of made you think that there was the potential to do it. And at the time in C2 there was only really Nick Smith and Stuart Bowman that were training seriously and full time, so we figured if we took it up and went hard at it, we'd have an opportunity to get in the senior team at least, and probably even an outside shot at the Athens Games.
I'd been struggling with injuries all through that year and hadn't really done enough to stay on the programme in an individual capacity, so I was at a junction whether I was going to decide to carry on, forge my own path. At the time I was actually quite excited about doing that, but then when Tim came to me, asked me about that, the idea kind of was a small, just a sentence, I guess, and I sat down thinking about it, and that night I couldn't sleep because I thought, this is actually really good. There's a lot of really good things about it because of the way we knew each other, we trusted each other, and our abilities and our knowledge, and I think just our sort of style and personalities, and I thought there's actually something could happen really good out of this, and in the end I agreed, I think the next morning, and we started working out how we were going to get the plans together to get moving on it. It was a very interesting situation, my shoulder dislocation, because we were just beginning to find our feet on the course in London. I think there were certain things we were really happy about there, and we knew we could work with it. We were good on that sort of water and everything, and the sort of in the moments immediately after that my shoulder dislocated, things kind of changed, like just on a pinhead. The whole thing disappeared, the sort of dreams and ideas just for that year, basically, they'd instantly disappeared. And I think soon after that, once I realised I was going to have an operation, I was in very good hands. The idea came into my mind that actually we've got an almost perfect amount of time where we can kind of rededicate ourselves, rededicate myself. And I think in that time I kind of almost saw a path ahead from that dislocation all the way through to the Olympics. If we could stay on that path, there was potential for a great story, you know, hopefully getting back canoeing, getting back onto the team, getting selected into the British Olympic team, and then hopefully winning a medal at the Olympics. I thought that's a real nice story, and there is still the possibility that that can happen. You know, we're still on that road, and it's a very nice idea to work towards.
I had an elbow problem that was it was definitely causing me a lot of trouble in the gym, but in terms of paddling I could sort of limp by with it. But my elbow, it looked like it had a golf or a squash ball on it. It was massively swollen, and it was quite impractical even for training in Australia. It was fine because you only have short sleeves on, but for training in London or Nottingham, it was quite inconvenient even just to fit it under a CAG deck would press on it and make it sore. So we'd had some scans and seen that I had a big bone spur growing on my elbow, and also a fragment of bone that was sort of floating around in there. And I guess once Etienne was confirmed to be having his operation, there was an opportunity there for me to get an operation done on it. And we were sort of on converging rehabilitation paths, but then the rehabilitation for my elbow didn't go quite as well as Etienne's shoulder, so it ended up being it was actually my elbow that was holding us back at the end of the season, which was a pretty frustrating place to be. I really enjoy getting out in the sort of big, exciting natural environments, like in the mountains or in the surf or something, and you know, particularly if there's, you know, an opportunity, like if there is good surf going or big dump of snow, or you know, some real nice dry weather so you can get out on the trails on a bike and rip that up. It would be I think it would just be nice to indulge like other hobbies on a whim almost and make the most of, you know, when we're in Australia, you're there and the Sydney beaches are awesome for surfing, but mostly we're there and 6 days a week you're canoeing and weightlifting, and then, you know, one day a week you might get in the sea for a quick shot, but you're pretty careful about what you do because you know you've got a lot on. I think going forward from this, it'd be nice to take more of the opportunities you have and do stuff, and I think it'll probably lead to enjoying canoeing a lot more as well, because we do it so much, and particularly C2 canoeing, you know, it becomes what you have to do, and you know, it is fun. It just can not feel like fun when you're tired and you've got to do the same thing over and over again, whereas I think there's so much fun to be had in canoeing. It's just easy to lose sight of that when you have to do it all the time.
I do like exploring, you know, like I would like to go on holiday more and see more of these different parts of the world. There's lovely places around, and the natural places I love, mountains and hills, but like cities and old castles and things like that, I like to go around those. And I'm a bit of a greedy food pot sometimes, and I like to eat different sorts of food and go and see around. Living in London has been a great experience to see all the different sort of things that you can see in London. There's almost, seems to me, endless amount of things you could do every day there, and you'd not have to see the same thing twice. And I really enjoy reading and learning about things in my spare time, things like that might not be super interesting to people, but I like just finding out about things or reading cool stories, and basically resting is what I like to do when I'm not canoeing. The canoeing event I'm hoping to thoroughly enjoy and really get my best performance out of myself. That will hopefully take care of itself by the preparations that we make. But the Olympics is so much more than just the canoeing events. It's a massive event of all those different sports people and all those interesting stories kind of coming together in that one period of a few weeks that have been built up over many years. And I would like to really kind of immerse myself with those different athletes and different people and just try and learn the stories, because I think it will be a phenomenal sort of melting pot of experiences and of a build up together. And I think it's going to be extremely enjoyable just to see that show, you know, the theatre of the event as opposed to the actual sports. The sort of background I think will just be so rich and deep that it will be very, very interesting to just talk to as many people and just hear as many stories about it as I can.
Yeah, it's just an amazing opportunity. I guess even if it is the biggest Team GB ever, it's still a pretty small group of people in the UK that can experience the Olympics from that point of view, and hopefully the opportunities to get around and support Team GB at the other events and really, you know, see the drama and, like Etienne says, the theatre of it all should be really amazing.